Welcome to the Korea Society. As many of you know, our current exhibition features a young Korean artist whose medium is mother of pearl or jagye in Korean. Throughout the history of Korean peninsula, you'll find various metalware and lacquerware, and we are thrilled to welcome back Professor Sunglim Kim to explore the art, craftsmanship, and techniques used to create them. Sunglim Kim is an associate professor of Korean art and culture at Dartmouth College. She specializes in the material and consumer culture of the late Joseon period and women artists in modern and contemporary Korea. If you have not seen it, her lecture on Minhwa is still available on our website and YouTube channel. You'll have a chance to ask your own questions to Professor Kim after her presentation. If you're joining us online via live webcast, please send your questions via email, artsandculture@koreasociety.org. And now, please welcome Professor Sunglim Kim.
Thank you, Jay, for your very kind introduction. Without much further ado, I will just start. Korea has a long and distinguished metalcrafts and lacquerware tradition. And while some techniques were introduced from outside, Korean artisans developed them even further and sometimes apply them to other media, which created very distinctive techniques for the field. In this presentation, we will explore three areas of Korean metalcrafts and lacquerware and their techniques. First, we will look at the most precious metal, gold, and the royal artifacts of the Shilla Kingdom. And second, we will examine the techniques of silver inlay on bronze during the Goryeo and Joseon dynasty, and how this process was applied to the pottery and how the unique Sangam inlay technique was created. And lastly, we will look at the technique of mother of pearl inlay on lacquer work, which is called najeon chilgi in Korean. Across time and cultures, gold has served as a metaphor for the highest value. Gold reminds us of luxury, success, achievement, triumph, loyalty, and fortune, and symbolize excellence, power, and wealth. Unlike stone, bronze, iron, and steel, it is too soft to be used for tools or weapons, yet it is bright and shiny, malleable, and also resistant to oxidation corrosions. So it is unique and the ideal material for artifacts associated with royal and divinity. Gold is also very dense and heavy, and it has good electrical and thermal conductivity. During the Three Kingdoms period in Korea, the Shilla Kingdom, which was located in the southeast of the peninsula, produced many gold artifacts, such as crowns, earrings, belts with pendants, rings, and more. In fact, Shilla's capital, Gyeongju, was widely known as the City of Gold. And according to records of the Arabian travelers, even dogs' and monkeys' collars were made of gold. But where did the Shilla's gold come from? Considering source, gold is categorized as alluvial gold or vein gold. Alluvial gold is found within gravel and sand in streams or rivers. To collect the gold, people gather sand gravel along with water in shallow basins, wash out the lighter rocks by panning, and float off other metals, while the much heavier gold collects at the bottom. For vein gold or placer deposits, people seek surface gold eroded from veins of underground ore or lodes. They find this placer gold with equipment like rockers, hoes, picks, and shovels. However, in Gyeongju, we don't find any gold veins. And about 10 years ago, researchers found that the large quantities of gold in the river in front of Warsaw, and this was the first time in Korea that rare bead-shaped alluvial gold has been discovered. And this is 20% higher in the purity than that of the ordinary placer gold. In 1973, significant archaeological excavations of two mounds in Gyeongju unveiled remarkable twin tombs of Shilla ruling couple, whose identities are still unknown. The largest Shilla tombs ever excavated, with a total diameter of 393 feet, that is 120 meters, and a height of 75 feet, or 23 meters. These tombs were first called simply Tomb Number 98, and now are named Hwangnam Daechong, meaning a large tomb from Hwangnam. Of the two, Northern tomb was excavated first and is believed to be that of a king's wife or queen of the 5th or 6th centuries. It contained an impressive array of various goods, including a silver belt with the inscription "Belt of the Wife," a gold crown, gold rings, gold chest race, gold bracelets, and a gold belt with pendants. This is a reproduction of the burial site at the museum. And the southern mound contained a gilt bronze crown and silver crown, a gold belt with pendants, gold diadem, silver greave, and a horse harness decorated with iridescent beetle wings. In both tombs were also personal ornaments decorated with precious stones, grave goods, and rare imported items such as Roman glassware with a phoenix head and cups, and numerous blue glass beads. And so I didn't show it, but here, this one is doing it. So here is a silver plaque with the inscription reading "Belt of the Wife." The most spectacular items recovered from this tomb is an elaborate gold crown of royal authority. It was assembled from cut pieces of thin gold sheets held together by gold wire. Spangles of gold embellish the crown, as do comma-shaped ornaments of green and white jadeite. The tall, branching forms rising from the crown's periphery resemble trees and antlers. This feature suggests its association with ancient Siberian shamans who wore a headdress with antlers. If we look carefully at the crown, we see that the advanced craftsmanship is intricately embroidered with various techniques. For the band circling the head, artisans used hammering, which was the most common techniques for Shilla gold artifacts, and a tall tree of cut gold and the center, and 4 projecting antlers of cut gold around it rise above the band. Round spangles dangle from the fine hooks and links. There are 5 excavated gold crowns from the Shilla burial mounds. These crowns show features similar to those of a gold crown from burial mound at Tilia Tepe, near present-day Sivergan in Afghanistan, which is the tomb of an unidentified nomadic woman of the 1st century CE. The gold crown from that tomb, like that Shilla gold crowns, is composed of a thinly hammered band with stylized trees rising above it and round dangling spangles attached by twisted gold wire. We can also see these similar features in the headdress ornament of the 4th century headdress, which was excavated at Fangshan Beipiao in Liaoning province, China. Compared to the Tilia Tape crown, Shilla crowns have more rigid composition with elongated projections and fewer round spangles. Also, Shilla crowns have green and white comma-shaped jades that dangle along the round spangles. Longer assemblages hang from thick hoops, drawing attention to the royal face they frame. However, regardless of these differences, the gold crowns from two different regions and periods show the transmission of artistic techniques and aesthetic taste, and a broad connection with global cultures. If we look at the world map of the Silk Road, we could see the connection and continuation of metal crafts, especially aesthetics and techniques of gold artifacts here. Remember the gold Roman glasses that were found both at the south and north mound of the Hwangnam-daecheong? This also leads us to think about the cultural and material transmission through the so-called Silk Road. Silk Road was the commercial trading route which not only transported the silk between the East and West, but other objects, ideas, people, and more, like disease. It would be also very interesting to re-examine the world trade in ancient time, and we could find another route we can call the Glass Road. Going back to the Shilla Kingdom, Shilla gold crowns were sometimes found together with gold belts consisting of a leather or fabric band covered with square gold plaques and numerous dangling pendants. The custom of hanging diverse articles from the belt is thought to have originated in the northern nomadic culture, and both Shilla and Baekje officers wore belts with hanging ornaments such as jade and tweezers, and the material color everyday tools such as small knives, medicine boxes, whetstones, flints, and tweezers. And the material, color, and number of hanging objects depended on officer position and status. And here's another gold belt from Shilla tomb called the 금관총, or gold crown tomb. Shilla gold belt seems to follow the tradition of the Shilla and Baekje officer belts. The gold belt from the Hwangnam-daecheong is 47 and 1/4 inches, which is about 120 centimeter in length. Hanging ornaments is 21 inches, about 54.4 centimeter long, and there are loops at both knees at both ends for fastening the belt. 17 pendant objects include a fish, small knife in a gold sheath, tweezers, a comma-shaped jade, and gold tassels. While crowns and belts with pendant ornaments were strictly regulated by the wearer's social status, the custom of wearing gold earrings has a long history, and they were worn by all Shilla nobles, both male and female. Shilla earrings are made of three parts: the uppermost ring, middle loop, and spangles. The thick uppermost rings were for women and the thin ones for men, and they were worn directly through the earlobes. Earlier and relatively simple earrings developed to more elaborate designs with multiple dangling ornaments, and the thick type of earrings became more voluminous with the addition of multiple spangles. A pair of excavated 6th century earrings shows the zenith of Shilla's technical excellence. The thick uppermost rings supports a slender middle loop from which dangle two tiers of multiple spangles and a long single heart-shaped element. Lavishness comes from rich granulations that fill the surface of the upper and middle rings and enhance the edges of the bottom spangles. These granulations are also shown on the rings. The north mound of Hangnam-daecheong had 5 rings decorated with blue glasses surrounded by granulation. Called nugum. In Korean, granulation is a technique to decorate a surface with small gold particles. First, a thin gold plate is made and then cut to extract very short and thin gold wires. Then the gold wires are cut into small pieces, and when briefly heated, these pieces become round grains. And in order to connect the gold grains, metal powder with a lower melting point is placed between the grains, and once heat is applied, these pieces connect to the metal surface and complete the process. Now I would like to move to the second part of the presentation, inlay on bronze wares. Inlay technique, or 입사 in Korean, is a decoration technique that involves cutting lines or grooves in metal, such as bronzes, copper, or iron, and filling the grooves with other materials such as gold, silver, copper, or tin to express patterns through golden color contrast. The technique first appeared in ancient Mesopotamia around 3000 BCE, but in the Near East it was used after the Sasanian dynasty and showed full-fledged development in Islam. On the other hand, in East Asia, crafts made with copper, gold, silver appear frequently in China's Warring States period during the Bronze Age. This technique involves digging a grooves in advance to insert gold thread when casting bronzeware. In Korea, the inlay technique was used during the Three Kingdoms period. The earliest examples of Korean work is lacquered sword, called a seven-branched sword, or called a chiljido, and currently housed at Isonokami Shrine in Japan, which was produced in 369, the 24th year of Baekje King Gunchogo. It is a ceremonial sword believed to be a gift from the king of Baekje to a Yamato ruler. And it is an iron sword, about 29.5 inches, that is 74.9 centimeter long, with 6 branch-like protrusions along the central blade. The inscription inlaid in gold on the sides of the blades is an important source for understanding the relationship between kingdoms of the Korean peninsula and the Japanese islands. Apart from this particular object, there remain about 20 other inlaid metal objects from the Three Kingdoms period, and the inlay technique is thought to have been the most popular in the Gaya region of the South Central Korean peninsula. Most of these remaining objects are swords with ring-like handles. They are the symbols of the status and power, only held by the privileged upper class. Some of the rings on the handles have no decorations, but many of them have a 3-leaf patterns, dragons, phoenix, or devil face design. In the Three Kingdoms period, only the line inlay techniques was in use. A V-shaped groove is carved on the metal surface, and most of the objects are inlaid with silver, but some have gold couple. The inlay technique was used mainly for weapons, such as Hwandu Dedo, the large military sword for battle during the Three Kingdoms period. However, during the unified Shilla period, we find the silver and gold inlays on iron harnesses and stirrups for horses. The metal arts made remarkable advances during the Goryeo period. Goryeo was an aristocratic society in which small-scale prayers, rituals were conducted more often than large Buddhist ceremonies organized by the royal family. Also, during this period, the production of luxurious goods greatly increased, and in response to demand and desire, a more decorative and splendid inlay techniques was developed. Inlay was widely used in making Buddhist instruments such as incense burners, ritual ewers, and incense cases. Of all the Goryeo metalwork, incense burners and kuntika display the most elegant and decorative features. Extant Goryeo incense burners are mostly in the shape of stemmed bowl with a wide rim, which can be used as a handle. The incense burner's foot is flared on the bottom. The body and the foot are usually cast separately and joined later, and the inside of the body shows the joint. Intended for burning incense before a Buddhist altar, this high-stemmed incense burner of the Goryeo dynasty is decorated with ornate patterns inlaid in silver on its body, stem, and foot. Lotus scrolls adorn its flat rim, and small concentric circles dot the edge of its rims. Its body has 4 double-bordered floral medallions, which alternate with the designs of 2 phoenixes holding lotus stems in their mouths and a dragon holding a precious jewels. The areas outside, let me show the details here. The areas outside of the floral medallions have reliquary scenes of water reeds, lotus flowers, and swimming mallards, reminiscent of scenes decorating Goryeo kuntika. Along with the incense burner, the incense container was decorated in silver inlay, while the entire surface is decorated with a variety of patterns in silver inlay. In the center of the lid is a design of phoenix flying within clouds. And encircling the central medallion is a yeouido patterns. Surrounding this is an undulating patterns of lotuses and arabesques. The lid slanting border is adorned with an arabesque scrolls, and the sides of both the lid and the body are inlaid in silver with a plant and floral scrolls. In addition to the incense burner and incense container, the kuntika, the water sprinkler used during Buddhist rituals, was also decorated in silver inlay. On the kuntika's body, a sprouting mouth is attached to one side, and a long neck arises, topped by a disc. An inlaid decoration in silver of willow trees and river banks lined with reeds, boats, and geese is seen on the body. A leaf pattern decorates the finial, stylized crown, and leaf scrolls encircle the neck. A thunder pattern adorns the shoulder. On the foot, an arabesque scroll appears in silver inlay. Another kuntika from the 14th century has the body decorated with large trees rising from the water, and swimming ducks and water plants surround the tree. Geese are flying above. Unlike the previous kuntika, all the decorations on this kuntika are schematic and have less lively composition and painterly perspective. And it was not only for Buddhist ritual wares that this elaborately silver inlay was applied. If we look at the bronze basins from the 13th century, we are dazzled by the elaborate and exquisite decorative patterns on the bottom of the basins. Korea had a dynastic change in the late 14th century from Buddhist Goryeo to Confucian Joseon. With a changing social atmosphere, there occurred changes in the types, functions, and aesthetic qualities of artifacts. During the Joseon dynasty, metal craftsmen became busy in response to increasing demand for a wide variety of metal goods. Buddhist objects were no longer actively produced, and more everyday tools and instruments were in popular productions. The inlaid metal artifacts ranged from scientific devices such as sundials, as we see here, rulers, and stationary goods, to various weapons and household utensils like candlesticks, tobacco cases, and rocks. In the Joseon period, iron was in popular use for the metal crafts. The Joseon artisans not only used metal wires and stripes to fill in the engraved patterns, but they also developed a new technique of finely chiseling the whole surface before inlaying with the different metals to illustrate design. This new method allowed them to better handle hard surface like iron. Silver was still the most popular inlay material, but gold or bronze was sometimes substituted. As time went by, authoritative symbols like the phoenix and dragons were replaced by more diverse motifs symbolizing longevity, blessing, happiness, and wealth, reflecting fundamental human wishes. One noteworthy point here is that the metal inlay technique further influenced the ceramic arts, giving birth to the internationally acclaimed Celadon wares. It was Korean potters that applied this metal inlay technique to portray pottery decorations. During the Goryeo dynasty, when elaborate inlaid objects were made, Korean potters gave birth to the so-called Sangam technique on celadons. The most common technique for decorating ceramics used to either paint or incise designs. But the Sangam technique is more complex than those two. The potter carves out motifs in the surface of the unfired clay vessel and then filled those negative spaces with white clay or white slip. He then scrapes off the excess white slips. Okay, so the first line we see that procedures, and after it's dried, he carves out further details and then fills that space with red clay, and excess red slip is scraped off. Okay, the second line we can see that procedures, and when fired, then he coats the vessel with glaze before firing. When fired at a high temperature, the white parts stay white, but the red parts turn to black. Thus, in the final products, we see three different colorations. Bluish background, white motifs, and black accents. The Sangam technique requires a deep understanding of the clay and glaze, devoted craftsmanship, and a great effort. The Sangam technique is one of the remarkable decorative techniques in the realm of ceramics, which contemporary potters still favor. Inlaid celadon ware comprises more than half of extant Goryeo ceramics. And now, finally, we come to the technique of mother of pearl inlay on lacquerware. It is called najeon or jage, referring to mother of pearl or the inlay technique using the material, and chilgi, meaning lacquerware. Lacquer is the resins of a family of trees found in Korea, Japan, southern China, and Southeast Asia. When tapped from the trees, lacquer is white or light gray in color and has a viscous consistency. Once exposed to oxygen and humidity, it hardens and becomes a natural plastic. It is resistant to water, certain acid, and heat, so it is an ideal protective cover. Lacquer objects, mostly monochrome, were produced in Korea as early as the 4th century BCE, though excavations have revealed several fragments of lacquer objects that display red painted animal, fire, and cloud motifs. There was a lacquered mask with gold inlay and glass eyes inserted, found at the Huchong tomb in Gyeongju. It was a decoration on the quiver from the 5th century. The term mother of pearl is used to describe the lustrous materials in the interior of mollusks, such as sea ears or abalone, and green snails found in warm waters, both fresh and oceans. Harvesting mother of pearl requires a boiling process, cutting off the shell, and carefully trimming and polishing the pieces. Although the term najeon relates primarily to material derived from various kinds of seashells in Korea, it is also used to signify inlay techniques using other materials, including tortoise shells, ivory, amber, coral, and fish skins. Mother of pearl inlay technique came from Tang Chinese dynasty to unify the Shilla. In Tang China, numerous objects inlaid with mother of pearl and various precious stones, particularly mirrors, were produced. However, in China, the attractiveness of the inlay technique faded during succeeding dynasties, while in Korea it was further developed and became more refined during the following centuries. Consequently, Korean lacquer objects with mother of pearl inlay during the Goryeo dynasty became greatly admired and coveted even by the neighboring Chinese. The oldest surviving documents relating to inlay with mother of pearl date from the Goryeo dynasty. In particular, from the 11th and 12th centuries, one of the revealing references to Korean lacquer work with mother of pearl inlay is written in 1124 by the Chinese scholar and calligrapher Su Jing, who visited the Goryeo in the 5th year of the reign period Suan-he, under the Chinese Huizong emperor of the Northern Song dynasty. While having stayed in the capital city of Kaesong, the present-day Kaesong, for more than a month, Su Jing wrote his accounts entitled Xuanhe Gaoli Tu Jing, illustrated record of the Chinese embassy to the Goryeo Kingdom in the Suan-he era. Although the illustrated part of the work was lost during the war with the Jurchens in 1126, the remaining written chapters have survived to provide us with a detailed description of Goryeo architecture, costume, and cultural artifacts, etc. In the chapter of carriages and horses, there is a description that the saddle and saddle clothes of the cavalry are fashioned with great artistry, and the saddles are decorated with a mother of pearl. Also, in the chapter of miscellaneous customs, it was written that simple lacquer items are not of the highest quality, but the lacquer objects with mother of pearl inlay are of an exquisite refinement and are to be valued highly. These two passages testify to the high esteem that Su Jing and his contemporaries held Korean lacquer work with mother of pearl inlay, and confirm the importance of work in mother of pearl in the Goryeo kingdoms generally. Throughout history, lacquer objects with mother of pearl inlay played an important part in the diplomatic relations of the states. They were sent either as a tributary payments or as gifts to the neighboring states, as they were very highly valued on their technical perfection and distinctive aesthetic characters. Like the bronzeware with a silver inlay, the lacquer were lacquerware with mother of pearl inlay reflect the lavish and exquisite taste of the Goryeo aristocratic and Buddhist client. Only about 20 lacquer objects with mother of pearl inlay have been preserved from the Goryeo dynasty. These precious artifacts are mainly related to Buddhist. Chest for storing sutras, which is compiled Buddhist scriptures. So sutra boxes or boxes for prayer beads, containers for incense, and the handles of dust or fly whisk made for the use of high-ranking monk. The Goryeo lacquer work with mother of pearl inlay do have certain characteristic features in common. Most of the objects, the boxes or chest, have rounded corner and sloping horizontal edges. Can you see? The boxes or chest have wooden core that was overlaid with a ramium before the application of the first coats of lacquer. A further special feature of these pieces of lacquer work with mother of pearl inlay is the use of colored tortoise from the horsebill sea turtle in a decorative inlay techniques. So these round case containers a string of amber Buddhist prayer beads, and the surface are splendidly inlaid with mother of pearl, colored tortoise shell, and brass wire on a black lacquer ground. So if you see here in the detail, the yellow and orange one is actually tortoise shell, not the mother of pearl. The tortoise shell was cut in razor-thin slices and painted on the reverse in yellow, orange, red, or dark red. The extreme thinness of the tortoise shell allows the color to glow through. And the combination of mother of pearl and colored tortoise shell is unique in the decorative art and has not been practiced in the lacquerwork tradition of any other country in the world. Another characteristic feature of the lacquerwork of the Goryeo period is the use of wires in precious metals, both for purely decorative purposes and also in order to reinforce the object concerned. The wires, which are in silver, copper, brass, and other materials, were used either in a single or double-twisted form. In a latter case, the wire was intended to reinforce the corners and edges of the round container, which often subject to considerable stress. This specific technique was adopted from the Korean metalwork in the inlay of silver wire on iron, copper, and bronze objects, and the technique was transferred to the field of the lacquer work. Another particularly characteristic features of the Goryeo lacquerwork is the use of intricate patterns that extend over the entire surface of the objects and are either geometric in character or floral with scrolling tendrils or chrysanthemum and peonies. The style of Goryeo period is characterized by the use of small pieces of mother of pearl that are cut with extreme precision and regularity and assembled to cover extensive surface. However, in the Joseon dynasty, the Goryeo style and aesthetics changed to follow the taste of the new Confucian elites and later the rise of wealthy middle class. During the Joseon period, new decorative techniques were used. In the Goryeo period, the most commonly used techniques was 주름질 techniques, in which mother of pearl was simply cut into the required shape by using fretsaw or jigsaw. Jigsaw can cut following the outlines of drawings, so the craftsman could produce the complicated shapes freely. However, mother of pearl is very fragile and brittle. It requires much of focus and concentration as well as technique of the craftsmanship during cutting. The 끊음질 technique, in which the mother of pearl is cut into thin strips, was initially used to make individual elements, such as flower tendrils and outlines, often as a substitute for the metal wires, typical of the Goryeo period. However, in the Joseon dynasty, this technique was also used for the main decorative field, for geometrical patterns and landscapes. One completely new technique that was developed during the Joseon period is the calculated hammering of the mother of pearl, known as tatchul법. As Joseon decors tended to be bigger and the designs more varied, the areas to be covered with the mother of pearl were also larger. If mother of pearl, which is naturally curved, is to be used on large flat surfaces, it has to be hammered flat. This technique was developed continuously during the Joseon period, and it is not only an excellent way of applying mother of pearl to large areas, but the craquelure caused by the hammering also created interesting decorative effects. The craquelure effect, which of its nature cannot be precisely controlled or calculated, makes an important contribution to the special beauty and charm of these pieces. Apart from these techniques, there are three different characteristic features of the Joseon mother of pearl inlay on lacquer works. First, the repertoire of decorative motif was expanded to include various animals and plants, especially the four gracious plants, including flowering plum, the orchid, the chrysanthemum, and the bamboo. Also, as the rise of the new middle class customers joined the market, the new style developed to meet the taste of the burgeoning middle class. Auspicious symbols such as the 10 symbols of longevity, the pair of cranes, and the heavenly peaches, the bat, and the characters for long life and good fortunes appeared on the decoration of lacquerware, and this silver inlay on lacquers expanded to everyday objects, including bobbins, lining rods, ruler, pillow ends, and quivers. Lastly, the regular repeats of small decorative elements characteristic of earlier times gave way to a strongly expressive and freer kind of ornaments, similar to that found in painting. The compositions of motifs became realistic and naturalistic, following the death of painting. And in order to meet the increased demand, private workshops flourished from the 17th century onwards and replaced the state-run manufactories. Most of the lacquered objects with mother of pearl inlay still in existence today date from the middle and late Joseon period, that is from 17th to 19th centuries. And I remember that I grew up with a pair of large lacquer closets, chest, inlaid mother of pearl, which my mother brought as her wedding gift when she married in 1960s. I also remember how she cherished them so much that she rubbed and polished them regularly. Now I hardly see this lacquer inlaid with mother of pearl chest at somebody's house, but rather I see them shops for tourists in Seoul. However, I saw beautiful artworks by Jian Yu, who transformed this Korea's old traditions to completely new, brilliant, and eye-dazzling artworks. Conclusions. As we have seen in this presentation, Korea has developed truly remarkable and elegant metal crafts throughout its history and contributed to the advancement of global arts and crafts. In the transcultural context, Korean craftsmen adopted the decorative techniques, especially inlay techniques, on either metals and lacquerwares, expanded its repertoires and techniques, and applied on the other media, and enriched the fields of global arts. And these traditions are picked by brilliant contemporary artists like Jian Yu, are continuing and developing and flourishing. So that's it. Thank you. So I
If you
would
have
like
questions, you can raise your hand. We'll bring the mic to you. And we're going to start with some questions that came in from our online viewers. First question is, can you elaborate a bit more about what you called glass road and what roles the kingdoms in the Korean peninsula played? Did they export as well as imported goods from other kingdoms along the road?
Okay. Thank you for very interesting questions. The glass road, which I just kind of made up as I kind of like look at the Roman glasswares buried in Gyeongju, the tombs in Gyeongju. So the so-called the Silk Road, when we kind of like look up the Silk Road, the definition is kind of like chains of trading routes, starting from the west, like Rome in west, and then to the Han Dynasty in east. So it kind of like from Rome to the Xi'an or in China. However, as I kind of like studied more, it's actually, first of all, there are lots of things were kind of transported and exchanged, like not only silk, but as you know, like tea and horses, like people and ideas, foods, and disease. As we know, the Black Death kind of like ended the Silk Road in 13th century. However, what we kind of like not seeing is like there are this Silk Road kind of extended much farther than Chinese Chang'an, especially during the Shilla period and also the Goryeo period. It's not only these Roman glass wares. I see a lot of beads and very complicated, like advanced, decorative, like the swords. And also I see the stone sculptures of the people that have not the Korean kind of facial features, the Western, like not Western, I'm saying he's like Muslim, kind of like, the Middle Eastern facial features. So this is a very interesting kind of like research topic for, people to kind of like do. And it can be certainly, the idea of Silk Road can be expanded. And during the Goryeo dynasty, there were Arabian travelers and merchants. Actually, the ships came to Kaesong and all that. So that's something that I observed during my research, but this is not my kind of like research topic at this moment. So this is I would like to kind of like throw out some ideas and possible research topics for other scholars to do. But I hope this maybe answers to that question.
And then there were a few questions wondering if there were any influences from India or other places like Manchuria and Russia, other than China and Japan? What were the exchanges between the Korean Peninsula and basically the other parts of Asia?
Yes. Korea is known to the West as a like hermit kingdoms for a long time, but that's because of the very late kind of like Joseon dynasty's policy of like seclusion kind of policy, isolation kind of policy. But like thousands years before, Korea had Korea was like much open and very global international kingdoms. So if I remember correctly, there was a kind of like, I don't know if it's a myth or a historical facts that there was a group of royal family, like Indian princess and with her entourage group, came to Korea and married to a Korean king. So I think she got the last name He. So there was like a story like that. So, and as I said, I didn't show it, but the golden crowns that with dangles, spangles, etc. It was not. Korea has like 6 pure gold crowns, and I think back then in ancient times there were only 12 were found. So it's kind of amazing that more than half of them are coming from Korea, and the gold gilded one, bronze one, the similar features are found. The crown is found in Japan. So it's kind of like there was more kind of like interactions than we can imagine. We think like 21st century is the most global time period, but in fact maybe not. It happened much earlier, much before. So again, as I showed that the gold crowns, so it's not from kind of like China. There's like no gold crown like that one in China so far I found, but it's much farther away. The Siberian and the idea of that the antlers and is, as I said, it's a kind of like Siberian shamans ideas and that Afghanistan the golden crowns. So it needs to we need to as a Korean scholars myself too need to kind of like broaden our eyes, like perspectives, other than China. Yeah.
Good evening. Thank you so much. When you had just began, you were speaking about some chests that were inlaid and they had a rounded top. You said there were only 20 that had been found or recovered, and I was wondering if you believe that it's not that they have been destroyed, but that it's possible in Korean society that many families still hold them as heirlooms to the family, and that in fact that history isn't very much lost, but it's just protected instead in a bloodline instead of in Korea's overall history.
Sorry, are you talking about like lacquerware or the inlays? Actually, that chest or boxes are not for ordinary people, but these are the kind of like boxes containing or storing sutras, Buddhist sutras. Yeah, royal, I would say religious, yeah. So, and of the 20 remainings, most of them are in Japan. So I think it's believed that, and Korea also went through a lot of wars, and so I don't think they are really kind of holding for their, to protect their heirloom or something. So maybe during the Japanese invasion of Korea in like 16th century, and again, that was the time that a lot of these sutra chest box were taken to Japan. So yeah, I think that might be reason. Yeah. Sure.
Professor Kim, for your lecture, and hope you'll come back and give us another lecture soon too. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for coming.